There's no more time for that. So it's time to kind of speak out. So let me get my nerves down. So the reason I'm up here is because I promised myself that I was going to go ahead and get up here 3 times. 3 is a Kabbalistic number, it's very powerful. So I wanted to get up here and speak 3 times. I did not know the first time I was going to come up and speak. As soon as I drove up, there was a parking lot full of people. So I'm just like, oh no. So I could have drove home, you know, I could have came in, just sat quietly, or I could have spoke up. So I chose to speak up. So second time I came in, it was a little kind of still a little nervous, you know, and the second time didn't go too well, but I made that promise to myself 3 times. So this is my 3rd time. This is my 3rd time. I completed a promise to myself and I'm doing it. I'm not afraid. So that being said, there's so many things that I would like to kind of speak to you guys about, but something kind of happened to my family a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the forefront. This little girl passed away. I babysat her. This is my cousin Marianne's daughter. She's 20 years old. She was hit by a drunk driver. You guys probably have heard about this. Her name was Emmy. She went from her mom's womb to my arms. I was her babysitter. So she was my baby. She was my baby too. So what I wanted to come up here and say is I want to know why the man who hit her had 3 DUIs. He had 3 DUIs. He had a suspended license, and he killed my Emily Ann. So I want to know, when do we start taking personal responsibility? When does the government? When does our city council? When does our judges? When do we start taking personal responsibility for this? Because this man should not have been out. He had 3 DUIs, 3, the suspended license. So I'm sure my minutes are up. I'm sorry. But I did it. This is my 3rd time. And let me tell you, I'm not going to shut up. I'm here. I don't care how silly I sound when I get up here. I don't care how nervous I am. I'm bringing my granddaughter. Honestly, she's the only one that I could get to come with me. I've been trying to get all my neighbors to come, but I got my granddaughter. I'm kind of grooming, you know.
Thank you very much.
I'm grooming. Okay. I appreciate it.
Are there any other public comments? Are there any public comments on Zoom or in written form?
We have none here.
Thank you very much. We will now close public comment. There are no written communications, no presentations or introductions. We have a workshop. Item A1 is a continuation of presentation of the draft fiscal year 2023 to 2024 to fiscal year 2027-28 capital improvement program, fire, park, sewer, and water. Ellen, do you have this item?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'd like to share my screen. Okay. Are you able to see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great. So tonight is a continuation of our presentation of the draft capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023 to 2024 through 2027-2028. It's a 5-year plan. We covered several items a couple months ago in May, and tonight is a continuation of the remaining projects that weren't covered on that May 17th workshop. We will be covering any changes from the projects that we presented that night also, and we also treat this as an opportunity to receive input and direction from council on any of the projects or programs in the CIP. So some of this will be a recap from our previous workshop. defining what a capital improvement program is. It's a multi-year planning document used by the city to identify capital improvement projects and coordinate the financing and timing of the projects. It's a 5-year plan that identifies projects, priorities, and financing. We receive public input year-round from our department, in Public Works Department, in Transit, and Parks departments. Pretty much every department that serves the public in some way, we have the opportunity to receive input. And then, of course, we also welcome input during this presentation of the CIP. It is often subject to change. Priorities can change. Funding, if we receive grants, we like to recognize those funding sources and we would modify the CIP to add projects. If there is reduction in funding, sometimes we have to move projects out, and that also is a change. Our ability to deliver projects affects how they are programmed in the year, and so you might see projects carry from year to year if we haven't been able to deliver those projects. Sometimes there are other delays that we incur outside of our control, regards to right-of-way or permits from other agencies. If there are emergencies, such as what we experienced with Avenue 13, that obviously changes our priorities, and we have to shift gears to addressing that first and then get back on our routine of delivery of the projects. Also, grants preparation takes a fair amount of effort, and it's great when we are able to achieve those funds. And I think we'll see in this year's CIP that has been successful, but that does take time. The CIP is formally adopted as part of the annual budget process. So any changes from the draft CIP from the prior workshop or tonight's workshop will be highlighted and included in the final budget as part of the budget presentation. And the funding, it's an annual funding, so the projects in 23-24 will be appropriated in the budget for 23-24 as well. And also the final draft gets submitted to the Planning Commission, and they will review for conformity with the general plan. So at the previous workshop, we covered transportation-related funding sources and their associated projects, primarily in airport, transit, active transportation, which is bikeways, pedestrians, and other multimodal sidewalks, and then our street program. Changes from that workshop, there have been a few more projects added that I want to highlight. We added Project R98. That's the official title for the 23-24 RMRA, which is the gas tax funding seal and overlay project that we actually discussed at the June 21, 2023 meeting. We presented a list of projects for submittal, and that has been formally incorporated into this Project R98. We've also added a project called R99, and that will be discussed later on in our Measure T public hearing, but that project combines unallocated Measure T funds from prior years. It rolls them all together into one large street rehab project, and it's scheduled probably for design late this fiscal year. So, and just in general, all of our street rehab projects will be discussed further in the Measure T hearing tonight. So, of course, there's opportunity now, but they'll have opportunity for more detail in that presentation as well. And also, we added $400,000 for preliminary engineering efforts for the storm drain pipeline in Howard Road that would relieve the flooding at the Howard, Olive, Pine, and Yosemite area. This will start the efforts to hopefully get enough information so it is potentially better, more competitive for some of the grants that we're applying for. And now I believe that Battalion Chief Duran is in the audience, and if he's able to present his slides from the podium, we'll try that.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and distinguished council. Ralph Duran, Battalion Chief here with Madera City Fire. To give you a quick overview of what's going on in the fire department, as you know, we have 3 stations, 56, 57, 58. 58 is the newest of our 3 stations that was opened a couple of years ago, so we didn't do much there. We do have some plans in the future for some training grounds, but we concentrated more on 56 and 57, being that those were the older stations. A couple of things that we accomplished from a previous CIP was we demolished the 4th Street house, we updated a gym, and then other than that, we conducted preventative and routine maintenance. So the picture in the upper left is at Station 56 that had a drop ceiling. That station was built in the 50s and it's coming on upwards of 75 years. Well, the drop ceiling was starting to deteriorate and fall. So what we did is we opened it up, we cleaned it up, and we removed some of those irritants that, respiratory irritants from dust and things of that nature dropping. That was in the middle is a picture of the 4th Street house. And on the bottom, that was the demolition work that was done. And the field is graded and the firefighters are maintaining it for weed abatement and grass. The top right is at 57, and that is the old EMS quarters that they converted to the gym. If I get the next slide, please. So here, moving forward for our guidance is with 56 and 57 being old, we decided that the best course of action moving forward is to conduct an RFP and get industry experts to evaluate the stations, from the living quarters to the bathrooms, the roofs, everything. We want a thorough assessment. And we believe by putting out an RFP and getting the industry experts, that'll actually give us a measured plan that we can do responsibly, both for the health and well-being of the firefighters, but also fiscally for the stations. So I've been working with Jennifer Stickman conducting RFP. We finished that up today, and that's in the final review. Our plan moving forward is if that is approved from the review process, we hope to publish in the next 7 to 10 days, depending on how long that review process takes and any amendments we need to do. From there, we'll have a 30-day bid period for the public to bid on this project. And then from there, another week or two to go to grade it and to award. So we're hoping that by late September, mid-October, that we can actually award some engineers and architects to review stations 56, 57, and actually give us a plan. And then once we get that, we come back to council to get guidance on what the best course of action is. And if you have any questions, I'll take those.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. Next up would be Joseph Hebert with Parks and Community Services. And is he online or in the audience?
I'm right here.
Great.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council, staff, guests, thank you for coming. My name is Joe Hebert, Director for Parks and Rec. And I'll talk about some of the CIP projects that we have on our list. We have a bunch more, but I figured we'd highlight the big ones for right now. The first on the list is the So the first on the list is the CIP, CIP for Centennial Pool Park, which has, we went through, it was a CDBG award of $215,000. I think you all remember this. We will resurface the pool with this money, and we're looking to get started on this fairly quickly. We started kind of doing our sourcing exercise, and we'll start a bid process shortly. The next project is actually one I think is near and dear to Councilman Rodriguez's heart, since we talk about it quite often. We were notified that we did receive funding for a town and country connectivity project. The unfunded award to date is $1.6 million, and it's still pending. We haven't received a formal notification, but we did notice that this is a line item in the budget. 500,000 out of that is from the State Department Parks and Recreation budget, and $1.1 million is from the State Natural Resource Agency budget. The next project that we have, and actually we've already started this one, and I've actually gotten a lot of calls about this, and this is the McNally Park rehab. And I know this has been on our slate for quite some time. And again, we were using CDBG awarded funding in the amount of $609,307. Next slide, please. Here's some of the pictures. We started the demo already on this for the playground structure, and we're moving forward. We're also going to be replacing some park amenities. We're targeting to have this section, we're moving as fast as we can, but we're looking to see if we can get this done by the end of September. That's an aggressive target, but I think we're making good progress on that. Next slide, please. The next project that we have on our list that we're talking about is another CDBG award, and this is for the rehab at the Frankfurt on Senior Center. We have a number of things that we're looking at, but most notably, we're looking at security fencing around that facility, just because we see a lot of homeless issues that come up there, and so I think the fence will be a welcome thing for us. The next project that we have is what was previously called Olive Park, which is now James Talbert Park. We are working on a grant of $1.9 million on this, and the project is scheduled to begin in 2024. We are looking at having a dedication for this park sometime in either at the end of September or the beginning of October. We haven't nailed down the date, but it's something we want to kick off and get the community involved. The next project was as part of our Clean California grant that we were awarded last year for $832,350. Thus far, we've spent $313,613, and that's mostly for litter abatement. We still have some other projects that are going to deal with trail resurfacing, installation of playgrounds, and then also trash cans with some art on it. So we have some other things to do there, and luckily we have some money left over to do it with. So I think that's the end of my slides. If anybody has any questions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Garcia. I just wanted to make a comment on, need a chance to thank Chief Duran for his presentation, but thank you, Joe. Really want to thank you in providing us updates on the proposed projects for a lot of this park. As you know, I think it's important for our community to know that we're doing a better job at enhancing our parks, not only in providing good walking trails, but also adding the functionality of a park, being able to have a playground, trees, anything that's green is great. One of the things that I wanted to just highlight is that when we surround ourselves in an urban area, there's always what they call an urban island heat effect. And that's because we built cities based on a lot of automotive. So you see a lot of parking spaces, you see a lot of roads, and those are all made with asphalt that can be dark, and then sun kind of attracts to the darker areas, and it creates degrees by 4 to 5 degrees. So our parks are probably one of the better things that help cool that effect and also provide us a good way of having a good clean air. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you for letting us know about that time. It's going to be a great project.
Yes, I also want to know.
Well, if he's going to address this at all.
Okay, that'll be okay then. I guess you can. I'm sorry.
Get my steps in it.
Yeah, really. But no, I just want to say thank you for all that you all do at the parks, the things that you participate in as far as events that are being held, and more so even the things that you're doing as far as the refurbishing and the upgrading of the parks, for the trail. I truly appreciate that, The Madera Park, that was truly dear to my heart, and I am so thankful for that. And for the children that go out and use these parks, even as far as the park panhandle, which is not on your radar. But I want to say thank you because without the parks that we have, a lot of things would be going on here in the city, and you would have people not having any place to go. And the parks filled on the weekends, and even during the week, especially the school being out, the basketball, sports, things of that nature. So continue the good work and just pass it on to your staff that you're so very appreciated in the things that you all do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Mejia.
My question is about the play area at Sunrise Rotary. So last November, you reported that it was a cost of $65,000 for it. $40,000 would be from the general fund. I believe we had applied for a grant and we didn't get it for the equipment that was to be installed there. So I'm wondering if this doesn't fit under for capital improvement.
So that is on our plans. I did present last year that we were looking at that. We actually have the equipment. We just need to install it. Right now, we're going through a process of vendor selection and RFP. We're looking at outsourcing to another vendor because we need an engineering estimate to complete the job, but it's still on our radar. We haven't lost sight of that. I don't have a firm date on that yet, but it's definitely on something that we're looking to do. I know this project's been lingering for quite some time, long before I got here. And what we did was we've already gone through the process of doing an audit of the equipment that we had and replacing the equipment that we don't have or that was damaged due to weather. And so that's our next step, is actually just to go through the procurement process and select a vendor to do the installation. It's a little bit more cumbersome than what we planned, but we'll get it done.
Oh, okay, so there's no timeline?
I don't have anything yet, but again, I hopefully we can have something before, within the next quarter or so, or at least a good line of sight of where we can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are we back now? We'll move on to the water and sewer projects component. And if you recall, Council directed all of our American Rescue Plan Act funds to go to water and sewer infrastructure with the intent to alleviate burden on the ratepayers with our long list of needs in both water and sewer. And so we received $23 million, and we are also working under deadlines that these projects must be spent or encumbered, or the funds must be spent or encumbered by December of 2024, which is coming sooner than we would expect. So we have been really focused on delivering those projects. We're meeting regularly so that we can, not run into any risk with that. What you will see is a lot of projects moving forward, and hopefully in 2024 and 2025, a lot of projects out in construction. Additional funding sources for water and sewer projects does come from capital outlay funds from the ratepayers, and any funds collected that are beyond what's needed for annual maintenance and operations, those roll to a pot of money that's then available for capital improvements. We're also receive grants and the earmark funding, which we were successful in receiving last year by $8.5 million for our Avenue 13 project. We had $3.5 million in the federal budget through Congressman Costa, and then we received $5 million allocation in the state budget from Senator Caballero, and those are helping to move that project forward so we can do both phases at one time, and we'll report on that a little later. One of the key elements that's allowing us to meet our goals of spending the money is utilizing the on-call engineering contracts. Back in October, Council approved 10 on-call engineering agreements, and we have currently completed, or we have pending task orders covering 18 different CIP projects. The value of their work, the engineers' work, is $1.5 million, but that does represent a construction value of nearly $13 million of projects that we're going to see moving forward here in the next year or two. On the water side, under projects where engineering department is the lead, we are looking at 5.86 miles of pipeline replacement through 5 or 6 different CIP projects. We've combined some of them together for economies of scale, but that's going to be a big undertaking. We had a meeting today with one of our engineers that's doing most of that, and they're ready to meet our deadlines. It Included in that list is a new project. It's W43, and that's replacement of the water mains in the State Highway 145 all the way through town, trying to get that work completed in advance of the Caltrans sponsored SHOP project, which is their highway improvement project where they're going to overlay the entire State Highway 145 through town. So our goal is to have that completed next year in advance of the State Highway project that's scheduled for the following year. We also have added another project. We're calling it R97. We received a CDBG grant to replace sewer mains and water mains in Clinton Avenue, and that's in advance of a paving project that we have scheduled. As far as activity on other existing projects, we are moving forward with the installation of well 37 on Granada Drive. Our engineer is finishing up the plans that will see that project, the installation of the equipment, including a generator, and that would bring that well online. We're also continuing to move forward with our new Northeast water storage tank, and that project is in the property acquisition phase right now. As far as sewer projects, as I mentioned, we have a new project. R97 covers both the sewer and water phase of the main replacements. We're moving into the design phase for the upgrades at the Fairgrounds Sewer Lift Station, and that's one of those on-call task orders that we've issued. And that's going to be a major enhancement and improvement to that facility. Of course, we are familiar with the Avenue 13 emergency repair that took place earlier this year. The final tally stands at $2.7 million, and there is a FEMA claim pending for that reimbursement, hopefully. We're getting close to 90% on the sewer trunk main project, the original project, and so we hope to have that out to bid this fall. The other major project is a sewer main replacement and rehab project for locations that were identified from our condition assessment. And between project SS 8 and 9, it's 1.86 miles of either repair, rehab, or replacement. And then it will also address 12 manholes that need reconstruction, or they are locations where a manhole should be and there isn't, and they're needed for cleaning operations, so we'll be installing some manholes. Just to give you, this is the Clinton Street project that was recently awarded through CDBG, and those are the area that it covers. So I'll transition the presentation over to our Public Works Director, and he'll discuss projects that they are overseeing.
Mayor Garcia, if I may, it seems like we're experiencing some technical issue on the Zoom, so if I can we could take just a couple minutes, I could check the audio.
Yes, absolutely. Take a 5-minute break. If necessary. Thank you very much, Alicia. And we are back from a short recess. Alicia, would you like to address the volume?
Thank you, Mayor. So the volume at the podium is coming through clearly. The speakers at the podium and those that are on Zoom presenting, it is coming through clearly. However, the council, the sound at the dais is very low, a little muffled. So I believe staff can hear the council. It's my understanding that it's just a little muffled. So if we can speak from the dais a little more clearly and maybe a little louder, that way our audience can hear us more clearly.
Thank you very much, Alicia. We will now continue. Where did we leave off?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I will reshare my screen. And hopefully we are there. And actually it was now about to go to Public Works Director Hernandez.
Right. Thank you, Ellen. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be presenting just a few projects that the Public Works Department will be taking the lead on. The first couple projects, the chlorine analyzer and generator projects, these are for our water wells. We are replacing older units that are 20 plus years old, doing that 3 per year. Currently installing 3 units that were purchased the previous year, and we will continue that until all wells have new chlorine analyzers and all generators are operational and updated. The second project is a new project. This is for the demolition of well 16. Well 16 is no longer in service. It's located near Kennedy and Tulare. Typically a well lifespan is about 20 to 25 years, and we've gotten more than that out of well 16, so it's no longer producing and not cost effective to rehab. Next slide. We just completed a wastewater a permit renewal project at the wastewater treatment plant that included 5 new groundwater monitoring wells. We had to collect groundwater data from the new wells, submit that to the state. The reporting is actually still being completed, but that project is a requirement of the state. We are working on improvements in the 5-year CIP. This is a larger project. It's funded primarily with ARPA funds, so we have a deadline of December 31st, 2024 to have the funds encumbered. That means we have to select a project, design it, put it out to bid, award the bid, and have a award of bid and purchase order by the end of next year. We're working with an on-call consultant from our on-call list. The consulting firm is AMCE, Alfonso Manrique Consulting Engineers. They're assisting us with the scope of the project, prioritization of project needs at the wastewater plant, and back up there, Alan. And they will help us put together the RFP for the project, and we'll put that RFP out for a design engineer and move forward with that. We hope to have that design completed by roughly this time next year, so that we can put it out to bid in time for to meet our funding deadlines. Next slide. And these 5 projects here are new projects at the wastewater treatment plant. We have 2 centrifuge units at the wastewater treatment plant, and to be honest with you, I've asked a million times in my 20 years in public works what those do, and it never sticks. They have so many different pumps and things out there. But these units are about $1.2 million each. We have 2. They're currently working, but they're undersized. So we're purchasing 2 larger centrifuge units, which will help us get to the 10 MGD that we have a goal for. The second project is work at our headworks and pipeline CIPP lining. That's a lining to basically a way to rehab existing sewer mains. Either a rehab of our current headworks or construction of a completely new headworks will be one of our larger projects this year. We're replacing gravity belt thickener installing perimeter fencing at the wastewater treatment plant. Currently, it's all open. And a new waste gas flare unit, which is a requirement of the state. The one that we currently have is undersized for the size of our plant. The state is requiring a larger unit. So that's a unit that we're working on. These are all the projects for water and wastewater that Public Works is taking the lead on. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
I'd like to add here that this past year, our staff has worked hand in hand with Public Works to develop a CIP, a capital improvement plan for the wastewater treatment plant. And it's been, I'm pleased with the outcome. And I think it's helping us address our ARPA spending deadlines, having those projects identified, and for future planning of rates and programs and grant applications, we're that many steps further towards that goal too. All of our engineering staff is on either in the audience or on the call tonight. I just want to thank them. Everyone has really performed above and beyond in delivering our projects and helping us meet all of our goals and deadlines. And outside of that, I don't have any more as part of this presentation. Of course, we welcome your input, and otherwise we just recommending that you do provide that time now or in short order thereafter, so we can get it rolled into the final CIP for inclusion in the budget. That concludes my presentation.
No. Yeah,
We're getting some feedback from an attendee.
Did any one of my colleagues want to provide any additional direction to staff? There is no formal action tonight to consider the information presented. Seeing none, we will close this item. Thank you very much, Ellen, for you and your staff. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the information provided.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to public hearings. C1 is the Measure T and Annual Expenditure Plan, AEP, for fiscal year 2023-2024. Ellen, do you also have this item?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. I just switched out my presentations, and I'll share this one.
No pressure, no pressure.
Okay, here we are. So tonight we're discussing the Measure T Annual Expenditure Plan for fiscal year 23-24, and this is a notice public hearing.
Ellen?
Yes.
I think I moved on to...
We're at consent.
Yes, we're at consent calendar. I apologize. We're on your item, and I'll come back to you in a second. Item B, consent calendar. Thank you very much, Andy. Big comment. Good catch. Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, a member of the public or a member of the council may request an item be removed from the consent calendar, and it will be considered separately. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar? Seeing none, Alicia?
Correct, Mayor. We have no written public comment.
We
No
will
one on
close
Zoom.
public comment and come back to my colleagues for discussion and or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I do would like to pull item B3 for a separate discussion.
All right.
So move to approve consent calendar pulling B3. Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Gallegos to pull item B3 for separate discussion. Second by Councilwoman Evans. Correct. That's correct. But if you want to,
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to clarify, although on the second reading here, I know on the last meeting that we had added some context to some of the rules in regards to the city council meetings and conduct. So if I recall correctly, Rule 11, which is miscellaneous, the order in which we would take the vote, was that also part of here? Because I didn't see that being any of the changes that we added on our staff report. If so, if it's part of it, I just wanted to again express that I was in agreement to that section or any changes to that section. But all in all, I was in favor of all the other changes to the new chapter titled to the government code. So that was my comment.
If I may, Councilmember Rodriguez, I understand the talking from Ms. McCoy that she is in the process of doing that, so that it's not part of tonight's item, but it will be brought as a separate item.
Great. I wasn't sure if it was part of it. I didn't see it on the added, but the previous meeting did have the context in there and rules. So I just wanted to confirm that that was the case. Thank you.
so motion to approve the consent calendar by Councilwoman Gallegos, second by Councilwoman Edwards. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? What is your motion?
My motion was to approve the consent calendar by pulling B3, so we should have approved it and then gone back to discuss B3 and then the motion to approve B3. Can I amend it now, Shannon, even though we passed that? Okay. So I will motion to approve the consent calendar, including B3, as presented. And I'll second it again.
Motion to approve the consent calendar by Councilwoman Gallegos, second by Councilwoman Evans. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're done with the consent calendar. Item C, public hearings. I believe we've read that already, Ellen. I believe we're ready for you.
Okay. All right, everyone can see that, I'm assuming. So as noted, this is a public hearing for the annual expenditure plan for Measure T for fiscal year 23-24. So just briefly, Measure T is the 1/2 cent sales tax approved by the voters in November of 2006. It is for transportation purposes in Madera County only. The funds have oversight by the Madera County Transportation Authority, and the measure is scheduled to sunset in 2027. The Measure T annual work program will be adopted at the September board meeting of the Madera County Transportation Authority, and that will include the annual expenditure plan submitted from each member agency. That would be City of Madera, City of Chowchilla, and Madera County. The city has been allocated $4,840,449 from the authority. That's estimated revenues for fiscal year 23-24, and that's what is budgeted as part of the annual expenditure plan. We also program any carryover funds from unexpended funds in prior years, and we also receive, if they receive additional revenue in the prior fiscal year, that gets credited to the city as an excess, and that's what it's called. It's called excess funds. So our projects and programs that we plan for the Measure T annual expenditure plan come out of the capital improvement plan process and the budget process, and that's identifies the projects and the programs. And the approval of the Measure T annual expenditure program, it does require a separate council action, rather, which is not the same as many of our other funding sources. They are approved by being approved in the budget. However, Measure T does require a very specific action approving the Measure T annual expenditure plan at a public hearing, which is tonight's action. This is a table that came from the staff report, and it details the funds that we are programming in this year's Measure T. It includes carryover funds from prior years, totaling $15,854,661. We are receiving an additional $270,000 $800,000 as excess funds from the prior fiscal year, and then the new allocation of $4,840,449. The projects are split into the different categories noted here under program, and that is assigned by statute, the Measure T statute. So we do not have liberty to move money around the different program categories. We need to stay within those funding amounts. I'll detail the projects in each category in the next slides. So in our regional transportation and highway program, that is funding for arterial and collector streets only. That is where our Olive Avenue project funds are coming from, a portion of that project. We also pay for portions of our street reconstruction and street rehab projects, those that are on collectors and arterials. We use these, we call them 3R funds as well. So the R79, we're partnering with the RMRA funds from 21-22 for a larger project. We're also partnering on Project R81 with gas tax. It's the local partnership funds. Only agencies that have a Measure T or a sales tax program are eligible for the LPP funds. So this project combines LPP and Measure T, and that will be another street rehab project. We are funding the traffic study of the Almond Avenue, Pine Street, and Stadium corridor area around the schools and commercial along Pine and Stadium. That is currently underway. We hired that consultant through our on-call list, and they're making progress on that analysis. We're also funding local match portion of the D Street and South Street traffic signal through Measure T funds. The local transportation program is broken into two categories. There's the street maintenance, basic street maintenance category. And this year, $860,000 of those funds, which is basically our apportionment, this year's apportionment, will be transferred to Public Works for street maintenance activities. And those include patching and crack filling and signing and striping activities, pothole repair, et cetera. We have $2 million unprogrammed funds in that particular category. And so, as I noted before, we created a new project called R99, and it will be combined with another category as well for a large street rehab reconstruction project. The streets have not been identified yet, but we've got the funds set aside. And as soon as we finish our pavement management system, those will identify the streets that would be included in that project. The second category in local transportation is called supplemental street maintenance. And countywide, the county, Madera County, uses those funds for their maintenance districts. So they're used a little differently than the cities of Madera or Churchilla. For us, it's just supplemental. It's no difference in how you can use the funds. It's just tracked differently. Again, we're partnering with this year the 2022-23 RMRA funds. We're combining Measure T with RMRA to put out a much larger project. And again, there's $400,000 of this category that will be added to the other new project. And we get better economies of scale when we do larger paving projects. So that's why you're seeing us combine several sources into one project, so we can hopefully get better bids and pave more streets. And then lastly, we had discussed in the first CIP workshop the need to consider allocating some of our transportation resources for storm drain projects because we're lacking in storm drain capital funds. And so $400,000 has been allocated for the preliminary engineering efforts for the Howard pipeline, and hopefully, again, to get enough information to make it more competitive for our grants. The transit category, transit has programmed $400,000 for their new bus shelter project, and they've programmed $60,000 for the canopy that is serving the new transit facility building. The Environmental Enhancement Program is for construction of bicycle and pedestrian facilities and other transportation-related projects that have environmental benefits. And so this is typically where we program our matching funds for our federal congestion mitigation and air quality grants, or CMAQ. And that's what you see here. We have our 2 alley projects that will be starting construction in the next couple of weeks. And we have bikeways and sidewalk projects also scheduled to move forward this year. And these are the match funds for those projects. In a previous council meeting, I believe it was approving the list for the RMRA funds. We noted that it's a balancing act between all the funding sources and all the needs to identify for our projects. And so part of this presentation includes that discussion to hopefully help you better understand how one particular funding appropriation you might not see the other projects that are also programmed. So we're bringing those forward tonight. So we just want to note that it does cover multiple funding sources. When we're planning these new projects and the road rehab projects, we have to coordinate with other underground utility projects. So if we have planned sewer and water main repairs, those street rehab projects are going to have to get pushed out a year or two until we can complete those underground utilities. We are underfunded in our street program. The previous pavement management study we did back in 2016 indicated we needed $6 million a year to achieve a pavement condition index, or like a rating of the roads, of a 68%. And that was just for the collectors and the arterials. Currently, we're receiving about 2.5 million annually. So it does create a backlog of projects. And Engineering and Public Works does maintain a list of candidate projects, in addition to the ones that come out of the pavement management system. So those would be the public requests that come in and noting streets that are deteriorating. And so we maintain that list. If they meet the qualifications for our projects, then they would be added. And in the next part of the discussion, we'll provide a little more information on how we select those projects. As far as the overall funding sources for this year for our projects, Measure T is providing 53% of the funds that are going towards our street rehab program. The other funding sources are RMRA, the gas tax, I'm just going to say the acronym CRRSAA. It's a COVID Relief Act funds that came through one time that we allocated to R81 to help provide a bigger project. And then again, the local partnership program that also partners with Measure T. So we have 5 planned rehab projects totaling $9.8 million. That is also showing a carryover of prior year's funding that's accumulated. So of the, we don't get 9 million every year. It's just, we will have somewhat of a windfall this year. We'll be able to put a lot out on the streets, and then we'll be back more to our standard allocation of 2.5 to 3 million a year. At this point, I'd like to have Alexis Raimundo, our assistant engineer, who's actively involved with our pavement management system, take us through the next few slides.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. I'll be taking it from here for the pavement management system. So in the upcoming physical 23-24, the city will be updating the pavement management system. The proposal will be going out at the end of this month, so we're excited for that to happen. The last survey that happened was in 2016. For this new survey that we're going to do, is going to be adding local streets, not just collector and arterials, so it will be all together. We'll have a pavement condition index for all the streets, generate rehab strategies and budgets for the next 5 to 10 years, comprehensive list of current state of our streets and needs. So back in 2016, the consultant that provided that did a survey for our collector and arterial streets, provided us a map, which is the pavement condition index, the PCI. Here there's a table that states how the streets are, whether they're good, fair, poor, or they just obviously just failed. They're all color coded, so you can kind of see which part of the city are much in worse conditions than others. So there's a scale that we have as a pavement condition index scale. So usually we would like for us to tackle streets that are in the fair section to do the rehab and select a certain treatment. It's much better for the funding that we have. We get to select more than one street. If we wait until they're under the 40 PCI, we'll tend to spend more chunk of the money of the fundings that we have. So we only get to select one street rather than 5 locations throughout the city. And here's the economic pavement treatment. So I'll just like to state what type of treatments we usually do throughout the city. So Cape Seal, I provided some pictures, the before and after of what it would look like before and after the treatment, and the microsurfacing as well, before and after. I would like to state about the Cape Seal. So usually you'll spend about $20,000 per 1,000 feet. And the microsurfacing, you're looking at about 11,000 per 1,000 feet. And we also have the chip seal that's we usually do throughout the city as well, which the pictures are provided there. The chip seal, we tend to spend about 10,000 per 1,000 feet. And grind and replace before and after. This is actually a gateway. So you kind of see how it was before and after a grind and replace. That usually it's about $100,000 per 1,000 feet. And one of the so this is an expensive full reconstruction project, and this kind of states back to the scale that we had on why we would usually tend to do rehabs and selective treatments on other locations than just one location. So Owen Streets between Adele Street and Clark Street it's a really bad condition. It is a candidate project. It has not yet been funded, but for this just portion, which is 1,000 feet, you're looking at about $450,000. $450,000 is a good chunk of funding, and if we would select this street for one project, we would be missing out on 5 other locations throughout the city if we were to select those streets and wait until we get funded enough to do Owen Street for reconstruction. So our PMS summary and conclusion: the amount of funding available determines which locations and treatments are selected. The worst streets are not necessarily the first to receive funding, and $6 million is needed annually for the arterial and collector versus what we get, which is about $2.5 million we receive annually.
Thank you, Alexis. So hopefully that helps shed some light on why not all of the projects and not the worst projects are funded. It's a balancing act. We use our tools, which is the pavement management system and the pavement condition index. We use our visual site assessment of the streets and in order to prepare our program. So it's not in the report, but I do know that Madera County Transportation Commission is working towards hiring, or they hired a consultant to bring a renewal of Measure T back to the voters, hopefully in 2024. And you'll be hearing hopefully a lot more information about that. So tonight, our recommendation is receive any input from the public hearing and to adopt the resolution approving Measure T annual expenditure plan for fiscal year 23-24. The item itself is the exhibit to the resolution, and authorizing submission of these projects to the Madera County Transportation Authority. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you very much for that. Alicia, Well, first of all, do we have any members of the public here present wishing to comment on this item? Lisa, do we have any public comment either written or on Zoom?
We have none there. Thank you.
Okay. We will now close public comment on this item, and I'll bring it back to my colleagues for discussions and or a motion. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Member Doing. I apologize. Yes, I apologize. Alan, I had a question to you in regards to the new funds that we have for 23-24 from Measure T. It shows a total of $4,840,000 plus your excess funds. So that's like $5.1 million. But when I see the chart that says street rehabilitation and reconstruction projects for fiscal year 23-24, it shows that on the column for Measure T, there's $5.2 million. I just want to confirm that, am I reading something wrong here as far as the allocations of the funds and what we receive?
I apologize. I based on what City Clerk said earlier, I had a little trouble hearing that. Can you?
Yeah, let me see if you can hear me now. On the chart that we have, you're showing that the new funds that we're receiving from Measure T are somewhere between 4.8, and then you have the excess funds from previous year. You hear that?
Yes, yes.
And it equates to about 5.1. But when you have Table 3, the street rehabilitation and reconstruction projects, I show there Measure T column has 5.3. Is there a discrepancy there? Am I reading that incorrectly?
No, that's correct. The 5.3 million in that Table 3 is what is allocated only for our rehab and reconstruction projects. It does not include our other regional projects, major projects such as Olive Avenue and the transit projects and our matching funds as well. So these are only the funds of Measure T that have been allocated for what we call our 3R projects.
Okay, and that includes also some of the carryover funds, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. The other point I wanted to point out is that the 53%, that's a huge amount of money that the city depends on to take care of its transportation needs, streets, potholes, what have you. And then we have the term regional transportation and highway. I know that can certainly confuse some folks, but really, if you look at the arterial and collector streets that we're working on, it's mainly to work within our city to improve transportation from our city to the regional connectors that give us easier transportation. So I just wanted to highlight that how important it is for the city, because recently, without passing the current Measure T that went before the voters in 2022, put us on a bind here, because now we have to go back and we hope that the city really gets to see how important this asset sales tax is, how crucial it is for us, especially when you have 53% of that of those funds being utilized for a lot of our just basic pothole and speed maintenance. So it's very important. I know that there is another campaign to try to pass this again in 2024. I just hope that we get boots on the ground early enough. We advocate the importance of Measure T, and more importantly, we try to stop the negative campaigns that are out there, because they do affect us. This is a three-agency collaboration that requires the county, the city of Chowchilla, and the city of Madera to work together to try to pass this measure. Both Councilwoman Gallegos and myself to the Transportation Commission. And we want to make this thing happen in 2024 because of the importance of what it does to our transportation streets, collectors, and all these arterials that are very important to our community. So I just want to make that point, Mayor. I think it's important for us to address this early on and start to make sure that we communicate. Every one of us has a responsibility, especially when we pass a measure, that we advocate for it and make sure that we get our folks to know the importance of it. So with that, that's what I wanted to comment. Thank you. And again, I apologize.
And no problem. No problem. Mayor Pro Tem Mejia.
Thank you, Mayor. Ellen, do you think you can expand a little more on the bike pedestrian project map that's in the report?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Oh, can you expand on the bike pedestrian project map that's in the report?
Yeah, I don't, oh, excuse me just a minute. I'm pulling up the old report. I didn't have that open. So the bicycle and pedestrian projects are those that are currently funded through various sources, CMAQ and Measure T. And so if Measure T touched a project, I included it on the map. And so some of them are, I think we have like the pedestrian bridge at Granada that is programmed and funded through CMAQ. We hope to start our engineering activities this year. And I apologize, I don't have the map in front of me. Was there a specific question or project?
Yes, I wanted to, well, you said that these are the ones that are funded for the bike lanes. I wanted to know what the process was for selection for those areas.
The projects come from the active transportation plan that Madera County Transportation Commission actually conducted the study for an active transportation, and then each agency has a piece of it. So the bike lane projects that came out of that were proposed as part of the grant for the AHSC grant that we got related to the Veterans Housing Project. And so the bike lane projects that you see on the map are all tied to that grant, which was tied to that project.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing no further questions, we will entertain a motion.
I do have one last comment I want to make, Mayor Garcia. And, you know, when we look at the maps that are shown before us here, you know, a lot of times, you know, you hear comments whether we forget about certain sides of the freeway, right? But if you look at the maps with the city streets, PR projects, and or you look at projects, signals, and you look at bike and the pedestrian projects, shoulder paving, you'll notice that it's very balanced. And it's not to say that you have 4 projects done in a certain particular side of the 99 or other, but it's pretty well balanced in the amount of work that's taking place that are underway to be able to make our community a lot safer. And I appreciate the questions in regards to bikes, because a lot of times that's something that people complain about is amenities. But in looking at the maps, and thank you for bringing this up, Commissioner. Sorry, it's just I'm not there.
You're all over the place.
I thought that the recap would make it easier. So yeah, it just shows a really well balanced map of where the work is taking place. And I want to appreciate this council and taking steps to making sure that these capital improvement projects and or speed projects are underway. Again, showing a very balanced amount of the share of work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion on item C1.
I'll say.
Motion to approve item C1 by Commissioner Councilmember Montes. See what you did there? And second by Councilmember Rodriguez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Ellen and the team, everyone involved for that report on Measure T.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item C2, initiation of proceedings for the annexation of Madera Place Apartments Project, Phase 2 of the Madera Family Apartments Project into Community Facilities District 2013-1. Packet, do you have this item?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor Garcia, Mayor Pro Tem Mejia, council members, Voltaket, Community Development Director. As read on the title, the item before you this evening includes 2 resolutions pertaining to the initiation of proceedings for annexation of the Madera Place Apartments into Community Facilities District 2013-1. Just a quick overview of this project, approved back in 2010. The Madera family apartments included 70 affordable dwelling units, multifamily residential. On this exhibit, phase 1 included 40 affordable units. That's the area north of the red line that you hopefully see on this exhibit. The portion of the project that's being proposed to be annexed to the CFD this evening is phase 2, dubbed Madera Place Apartments. It is part of that original project and is comprised of 32 units in the phase 2 portion. CFD 2013-1 was formed by the council in 2013. It replicates public services provided in CFD 2005-1. Those public services being primarily police, fire, storm drain, parks and open space maintenance. The project was conditioned to be annexed into CFD 2005-1, which is our typical CFD for residential projects. However, in 2011, the city received a request to prepay the 30-year term, the special assessment for the CFD. The phase 1 portion was paid for those 40 units. CFD 2013-1 was set up in 2013 to provide a rate and method of apportionment, which recognized the prepayment and set forth horizon dates for when the regular special tax assessment would kick in following the term of the affordability covenant, the 30 years. Again, it was formed for accounting of that special advance prepayment. These tax assessments do fund the gaps between revenue generated in the public services that just mentioned, and those taxes are deposited in the general fund, as it is the general fund that is impacted specific to those services. This will be the first annexation to CFD 2013-1. So again, it was established for phase 1, formulated. Phase 2 will be the first annexation to that territory. Again, the phase 1 portion ended up paying a total of $175,246 for purposes of the 30-year advance prepayment, utilizing the same formula that was utilized and authorized by the council for the prepayment. But based upon a more contemporary and present value, the phase 2 portion, comprising 32 affordable units, would contribute $225,298.64 for the 30-year term. That breaks down to just over $7,000 per unit for the entire term of the 30 years. Staff's recommendation includes 2 resolutions for adoption, the first being the adoption of a boundary map for the territory proposed for annexation, again, the phase 2 portion of the project, and a second resolution declaring the intention to annex the territory, authorizing the levy of the special taxes, and setting the public hearing date for formulation and establishment for September 6, 2023. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to field any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Will. We will now open it up for public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak on the annexation proposal? Do we have any written?
We have none, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now close public comment and bring it back for discussion and or motion to make comments.
Motion to approve C2. Second.
Motion to approve item C2 by Councilwoman Evans, second by Councilmember Villegas. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Will, for that report. We will now move on to item D, petitions, bids, resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. We will look at item D1, adoption of ceremonial documents guidelines. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council. Let's need a second here to share my screen. The item before council this evening is a follow-up to the meeting a couple of weeks ago where city staff presented in the form of a workshop, a draft ceremonial document guidelines. This was at the request from City Council, if memory serves me, 3 meetings ago. So I will spare council because we did discuss this item at length at the last meeting. However, for those council members that may have not been here, or for some community members, I will provide a very succinct background. So again, this item was initially introduced as a workshop on June 19th. Today, the City Council commonly issues either proclamations, City Council certificates of recognition, and the mayor certificate. So we currently do 3 under the proposed guidelines. We would be expanding that to a total of 5, 2 of which would require council majority action in terms of formal action. The following 3 would not require council majority vote. However, it would require City Council action either as an individual or from multiple council members. So to begin, I'm just going to move this over a little bit. I'll take it off screen. So currently, or as proposed, the first 2 that would require approval by council majority would be proclamations and certificate of recognitions. Going back to our last meeting on June the 19th, whereas city staff try to clearly define some of these items, I will acknowledge that there's a lot of bleed over, and there are times where certain items could either be a proclamation or they could easily be a certificate of recognition. And so it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray built into these. That was not intentional. That's sometimes recognition is very difficult to differentiate. So for proclamations, there is currently in the staff report an annual list. That annual list would come before the council annually, probably more than likely at the tail end of December or the beginning part of January, where city council members will collectively approve those. So proclamations would not necessarily come back every meeting or every other meeting. It would be done at the beginning of the year. However, there is an opportunity to bring individual proclamations throughout the year if so the council would desire. Certificate of recognitions would be treated very similarly. They would primarily be for exceptional accomplishments by an individual or a group or a private company. And it could also be for organizations that contribute to the economic well-being of our community. On the overhead is a list of the annual proclamations that would be presented to council. Those identified in red are typically not done today. However, city staff would be recommending that those be added to the annual list. And for a couple of examples, we have National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, which is in January, Firefighters Day in May, Public Service Week, Public Works Week, Pride Month, National Senior Citizens Day, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the Small Business Saturday at the tail end. So again, those would be new for 2023. Obviously, we're in August, so anything that happened prior to August, the first date would be in 2024. The next thing on the overhead are ceremonial documents that do not require approval by a majority of the council, and that would be certificate of commendation, certificate of appreciation, and congratulatory certificate. Congratulatory would be for milestone birthdays, groundbreaking ceremonies, really cutting and grand opening. And then I'll spare the council for the other 2, but can go on the overhead, and they're discussed in the staff report. So in terms of process, these would be the first 2. So items 1 and 2, which would be our proclamations and certificate of recognitions. The approving body would be the council majority. The signature on the document would be the council members. However, council members would be provided an opportunity to be omitted from that. If a council member were to vote no on any item, they could potentially still sign it. However, there would be a time limit and they would have to notify the city clerk. The approval process for proclamations would be the annual list, which was shown 2 slides ago. However, if an item is not on the annual list, the process would be that a council member would introduce it, very similar to how we did it today. And then that item would be scheduled. If the council majority would approve of that for formal action. Certificate of recognition would be the same process. And again, both of those would require city council majority for formal action. The following three would be certificate of commendation, certificate of appreciation, and congratulatory. And how this is envisioned is if a council member would approve an individual council member, that council member, if it falls within one of the categories 4 slides ago, I think, or maybe it was 5 slides ago. So as long as it clearly met one of the defined categories, that city council member would have an opportunity to present it either at a city council meeting or another event. For example, someone's birthday party or a ribbon cutting ceremony. However, all city council members would be provided an opportunity to sign that document. And the timeline would be 5 business days if memory serves me, and the city clerk would reach out to every council member, so every council member would be provided an opportunity to sign that document. However, there would be no pressure to sign the document. And the council member that would first be approached would be the presenting person at whatever ceremony you would be presenting it. The nuance to that is if an individual were to approach the city without going through a council member, then it would be the mayor would be making the presentation at the mayor's discretion. So I articulated this, so I will skip it if that's okay. So the financial impact, it's very difficult to try to speculate what this would be. However, the cost would be very nominal. It would primarily be organizing city staff time and council time, and the paper that the document's printed on. So it's nominal at best. I mean, it's pretty small. So with that being said, staff is recommending that the council adopt a resolution approving the protocols so guidebook, which would be a section within the ceremonial documents policy of the city. And so that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Do we have any members of the public on Zoom or the written form?
We have none here.
Thank you very much. I will now bring it back to council for discussion and or a motion. Mayor Pro Tem Meany.
Thank you, Mayor. Armando, can you please go back to the dates that are already on the calendar?
Absolutely. Wrong presentation. Give me a second here. Where did it go? Disappeared on me. Here we go.
Since this body approved the proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day last year unanimously, it would make sense to add it.
And that's a prerogative of council, and I apologize if I missed it. I tended to go back to the past year and I try to identify those proclamations from the past year, and I inadvertently omitted it. So it's completely up to the council at this point. So it's council's prerogative. So if the council would like to add it to the list, that's no problem.
I don't make a request to add it.
Do that while we make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
You have the date. Is that October?
Yeah, it's October.
Okay.
So I'm bringing it back to council for a discussion. Motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. With the addition of
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Motion to approve item D1 with the addition of Indigenous proclamation for Indigenous what's the proper title?
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Indigenous Peoples Day in October. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
We will now move on to item T2, designation of a voting delegate and alternates for the League of California Cities 2023 Annual Conference. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Allow me to share my screen. The item before the council this evening is to designate a voting delegate and an alternative for the upcoming League of California Cities Annual Conference, which is scheduled in Sacramento in September. As of today, all city council members have registered to vote. It's an annual conference hosted by the League of California Cities. It's one of 3 conferences. At the final day of the conference, which is typically a Friday afternoon, there is generally one voting action or 1 or 2 items that are statewide concern. Sometimes it could potentially impact only one county. However, again, they're typically either a statewide concern or even national concern. Through the Cal Cities bylaws, every local jurisdiction has the ability to designate one voting member and one alternative. There is no harm in not having a voting delegate. However, I would strongly recommend that the council have a voting delegate because some of these issues could potentially impact the city of Madera. For example, 2 years ago, there was a hotly contested item that was going to re-examine how sales tax was distributed for distribution centers in the state of California. And so that was an item that obviously had immense impact on the city of Madera. So with that being said, city staff is recommending that the city council designate at least one voting delegate and one alternate. And I would also like to add that the city staff report currently reads to adopt a resolution. City staff would like to strike adopt a resolution and replace that with adopt a minute order because there's not a resolution attached to your staff report this evening. So with that, that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. So the recommendation reads adopt a minute order to designate the voting delegate.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Item D2? Not, you said there are no written and
That's correct. No public comment.
Thank you very much. We'll now close public comment. We get back to my colleagues for discussion and or interest. Councilwoman Gay.
Thank you, Mayor. Right now, we're all slated to go. It's hard to nominate somebody if somebody here is not planning on going. If they could let us know now, we'll be pushing them to be a delegate. Is everybody planning on attending in September? I was the delegate last year, so I would like to nominate Mayor Pro Tem Mejia as the voting for the city of Madera.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of designating Mayor Pro Tem Mejia as the voting member, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And
I do feel an alternate. You remind me of the
September 20th through the 22nd.
Right. And the voting typically happens on the final day, which would be the 22nd, usually after lunch in the afternoon.
is there anyone who would like to be the alternate? We volunteers for alternate? Thank you. Councilmember Villegas? Yes. There a second? Second. Is there a motion? Okay. All those motion by Councilmember Villegas and second by Councilmember Evans to appoint as the alternate Councilmember Villegas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Thank you very much. To one, you want to make a note of that? There's one. Would you like to do a roll call? Yes, let's do a roll call.
Councilmember Gallegos?
No.
Councilmember Rodriguez? Councilmember Montes?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mejia?
Yes.
Councilmember Villegas?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes.
Motion passes with 6 yes votes and 1 no vote.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to both of you for representing us in Sacramento, the cities. We will now move on to item D3, legal services agreement for city attorney services. Mr. Rodriguez, you have time?
Three, before you get to that, thank you very much. And Mayor Wendy Silva, our HR director, is going to this item. Thank you.
Ready?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry, Mayor, we did some switching at the last minute on you there. So I will quickly walk us through this presentation. This is the public consideration of a legal services agreement for city attorney services. How did we get here? So the city published an RFP, a request for proposals. It was published for 4 weeks. It was published on our Planet Bids portal, and we also did a broadcast notification to 250 registered parties, a little over 250 with the Planet Bids portal. We also sent out direct mail letters inviting participation to legal firms we knew provided city attorney services. In the end, the city received 15 proposals. All proposals were reviewed by the city council, and council selected and interviewed 4 firms in person. At the conclusion of those interviews, Alshire & Winder was the preferred provider of services. So based on that, staff entered into negotiations for a legal services agreement, and the agreement is before council tonight and included in your packet. In summary, the term of the agreement is for 2 years, beginning August 3, tomorrow, and it will renew annually thereafter based on satisfactory performance reviews of firm by the city council. The city may terminate the agreement at any time. There is no required notice provision. The firm must provide the city 75 days notice of an intent to terminate. 75 days chosen with the hope that if we are in this situation again, we have a smidge more time than we did the last time to find new counsel. So assignment of personnel under the agreement, Mr. Shannon Chafin, who is up front, I believe, by council, but I believe the chair might be empty at the moment, will be designated as the city attorney for the city. Any changes to the designated city attorney, should something happen at the firm or to attorneys assigned to work on city matters, must be approved by the city manager. The fee schedule, the next slide has the table as presented in the staff report. Basically, we were able to negotiate an introductory rate for partner, which will be the primary work on our account up in the beginning, at $250 per hour. This will continue through the current fiscal year or June 30, 24. At that point, the partner rate will adjust to $265, all other rates remaining as proposed in the agreement, and that will continue through December of 24. And then beginning January 1 of 2025, we have our first potential across the board increase. The firm bases their increase using a 12-month look back on CPI, but they do have the right to waive an increase. If they will be changing the fees based on CPI, they must give the city written notice by November 30 of each year so that council has time to review in advance of the changes. This is, as I mentioned, the table of the fee schedule. It is in the agreement, and it captures the rates for the first portion. After December 2024, the rates may be adjusted by CPI, but being that we don't know what those are yet, they are not in the table. So the contemplated action this evening is approval of the agreement, should council desire to retain Alshire & Winder to provide the city attorney services. I can answer any questions council has at this time, or I'm sure Mr. Chafin can as well.
We will now open public comment. Does anybody in the public wish to address the council at this time regarding this item? On item D3. Lisa, do we have any public comment in Zoom or in written form?
We have none, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We will now close public comment, and I'll bring it back to council, my colleagues for comment and or a motion.
I so move to approve D3 as presented.
Second. Motion to approve item D3 by Councilwoman Gallegos, second by Councilmember Villegas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We will now move on to item D4, State Route 99 Block Wall Enhancement Project artwork selection.
You get to control the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Nice.
Come together and Jim.
Working on the technology here.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, members of the public. My name is, can everybody hear me okay? I'm a little shocked to hear your voice on the mic. So good evening, Gabby Salazar, Parks and Community Services Administrative Analyst, here to present this item. And I have to say, I'm very delighted to present this item. And I have a co-presenter with me tonight.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Core. I'm the Executive Director with the Madera County Arts Council, and happy to be part of this presentation.
All right, so we'll get started. So just a little how we got here. On February 15th, we presented to Council the Clean California State Beautification Program, Madera Block Wall Enhancement Project, the implementation plan, and a request for action on several items. Those included the approval of a transportation arts agreement between the Department of Transportation, Caltrans, and the city in the amount of $100,000. Council also approved a memorandum of understanding between Madera County Arts Council and the city in the amount of $6,000. And we also, Council also established an art selection committee. So just to recap, the project does aim to beautify the newly constructed block wall on the east side of State Route 99, south of the 4th Street off-ramp. It's also to aesthetically enhance the area by adding landscaping features. And one of the other components of the project is to promote civic pride and community placemaking through the installation of artistic design on the block wall. Specifically, the Transportation Arts Agreement approved with Caltrans will cover the cost of procuring artists or artists, administering contracts, and the procurement and installation of the art panels. And the MOU between Madera County Arts Council and the city in the amount of the $6,000 is to cover the time and effort, which we found is a lot, and efforts with the sourcing of an artist, the artist's oversight, as well as the conversion of artwork through the installation phase. And establishing the art selection committee helped us assist with the solicitation process, the selection of artists, and the selection of the artwork, as well as making a recommendation to council tonight where we are. So just to provide a bit more context, the block wall that we are referencing, pictured in the image above, is looking northbound on State Route 99, and an image of it looking southbound on State Route 99. The total length of the block wall as it pertains to this project is 1,223 feet, which will consist of artwork in 5 separate sets of 4 vinyl wrapped panel groupings, as pictured here. And this is just a current picture of the block wall. And here we have a visual of what the block wall at its completion would look like, with the landscaping, the planting, and then the grouping of the artwork placed along the block wall. Now I'll hand it over to Jeff.
Oh, thank you. So we put together a group of folks to help us as an advisory committee to help select the art. A couple of them right here in the City Council chambers, along with Steve Norton from Madera Community College and Joe Latimer from the Madera Unified School District, and me. I was also on the group to help select the art. So we went through the process of what do we do next here, Gabby?
Right here, the little
Great.
arrow next.
So we went over the proposal based off of what Caltrans is looking for. There's certain, there are a lot of specifications that go into the type of art that we're allowed to put up on a wall. One thing to mention is that this is not a typical mural project. In other words, this is not going to be a painted mural like we saw recently behind the TJ's restaurant. This is going to be a series of panels that are then framed and adhered to the wall. So it's slightly different, but it's still a great art project. So we put together the art selection committee. We put the word out to find these artists, and at the Arts Council we have access to artists to be able to find those folks who could do that. So we started off with 19 artists after we put out this proposal, and narrowed it down to 7. I'm sorry, I said 17 artists, narrowed it down to 9. And the 9 artists were interviewed and they submitted their final artwork pieces for consideration of the project. And we've come up with 3 different options for consideration, with only one option being able to be selected. Before we do that, I just wanted to give a little quick overview of the artists that were involved in this project. We have a lot of, I've been in the Central Valley for 18 years, and we really do have a lot of great artistic talent here in the Central Valley. And just wanted to share who these folks are and what they're doing. Robert Amador Jr., he's based in Fresno. You can see some of his work that he's done here over the past few years. I'll go quickly through these, but just wanted to give them a shout out. Chico Delgado, she got much of her education in Tokyo, Japan. She submitted work at the Arts Council and has been a part of many of our exhibits there. Daniel Van Gerpen, he's in Fresno too. Has a lot of great art too, and has been involved at the Arts Council as well. Amy Morgan's up in Clovis, and you'll see some of her work in just a few minutes. Patty Pratt, she's out there in Merced. She's done a lot of different things around the Central Valley, as you can see in Visalia, Porterville, Turlock. Eddie Rodriguez, he's an award-winning artist who has submitted his work to Celebrate Ag at the Arts Council and is a Best of Show winner. Kirby Smith's in Coarse Gold. You can see some of his credits there. It says he's also a photographer. I should point out that he was a photographer for the National Geographic, for crying out loud. So he's quite a talented photographer in his own right. Andrea Torres, she had some pieces at the Arts Council too. That picture was taken there at the Arts Council, and she's in Fresno as well. Ann Whitehurst is Fresno-based as well. She's done a lot of projects with young people, with students, mural projects out in throughout places that you can see there, Los Banos and Milton. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so here are the 3 options we came up with. Now, to understand a little bit of how it's going to work, picture that sound wall, and there's roughly 175 feet between each set of art. So the panels are in 4s, and so it starts from left to right or right to left, and there's about 175 feet in between each of the pieces along with the plantings. So when you see them on the screen, they're going to be jammed together, but give it some white space, as they say in the journalism world. Here we go. So here's the first set. Our understanding is that 1 to 5, so 5 is going to be on the far right, and number 1 would be on the far left of the sound wall, and it would go in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I feel like I'm on a game show of some kind. And now if you would lock in your numbers, okay, get a good look at option 1. Okay, here comes option 2. Features art from 5 different artists, 4 panels each. These are all different from the first option. So it would feature Patty Pratt on the far right,
followed by Andrea Torres, Chico Delgado, Amy P. Morgan, and then Daniel Van Gerpen will be on the far left of the project. And just to reiterate, these pieces are then digitally photographed, put onto high-grade vinyl, and then wrapped around a heavy-duty foam core. Then that piece then gets lodged into a frame, which then gets adhered onto the sound wall. So again, slightly different than a standard painted mural. All these pieces, they have the ability to be photographed and transferred to this vinyl. So then the final one is all by Daniel Van Gerpen. He would sweep the category with all of his pieces going in, starting on the far right with number 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. These pieces that he does from around the Central Valley that he photographs first using a drone and then paints them from what he's seeing with his photographs. What's the next step? Yeah. By the way, I just want to give a shout out to Gabrielle. She's been so great to work with the city, and Joe has been fantastic as well. We've sort of created our little group of 3 there working on these things. So it's been a real pleasure getting to know you both and working on this project. So thank you for that.
I'll take it back here with the next step. So the next steps include finalizing an art maintenance agreement between the city and Caltrans. We cannot do that until we select an artist and the artwork. And the agreement must be approved prior to any artwork installation. Then we have to secure a vendor for the artwork conversion that Jim was talking about, do the actual artwork installation, and then we will plan an artwork unveiling event to the public. Financial impact, so this does pertain to the $100,000 that we are receiving through the Caltrans agreement. $6,000 of that is going to the MOU between Madera County Art Council and the city. The 9 artists that were selected to move on to the second phase are getting a $250 stipend for their time and effort in participating in the selection process. So that equates to $2,250. Each panel was quoted, or not quoted, will be reimbursed or paid out at $2,000 each. So with 20 panels, that's $40,000. And then the remaining of the agreement will go towards the artwork conversion and installation for that $100,000. Quick table to summarize what I just went over. And so the recommendation tonight is to select artwork based on the recommendation from the Art Selection Committee being presented tonight, and then approve a resolution for the selected artwork at the block wall enhancement project.
Thank you, Gabriela and Jim. Are there any members of the public wishing to please approach the podium? You can make public comment. You will allow Mr. Montes to address the comment.
Give me 3 minutes.
Sorry.
I like any ideas. I like any ideas of beautifying Madera. Is good for the Maderans, for the Madera and all that. But that particular wall is being tagged in the last year 3 times, right? And I was in Southern California 2 weeks ago, Hollywood area and close to Santa Monica. And on the side of the tall walls on the side of the freeway, beautiful artwork and all that, and all tagged already. And my concern is like, they put it on, it's going to look nice, and somebody tag it. What's going to happen? We're going to keep paying for repainting, or what's the second step? And you know, believe me, it was my wife and my family with me, and we passed by Hollywood, and there's some tall walls and beautiful mural beautiful big ones and all tagged already. And I assume it costs a lot of money to repaint them or redo them. And it's sad to say, again, you know, I pass by that wall almost every day. And in the last year alone, I think they repainted about 3 times. Am I right or wrong?
I'm not sure.
You know, I'm just trying to bring a point, you know, how you're trying to get an answer, what's going to happen once if somebody, hopefully not, but if somebody go and tag it and all that, what's next? Are we going to keep just paying or what's going to happen?
Thank you for your question. We'd like to address the next question. Thank you. Maintenance.
Sure, I can try. I can make my best attempt. So the actual art maintenance, when the frames do go up, that will be established with the art maintenance agreement with Caltrans. My understanding is that Caltrans will take over or will be responsible for the landscaping and the maintenance of the block wall, but any vandalism to the frames themselves would be the city's responsibility. We will be working with the vendor to hopefully assist us with having frames that are, what's the term, anti-graffiti, or will deter or make vandalism cleaning a little easier, so that we won't be having to repaint or reprint or, you know, trying to reduce that cost.
May I add one more thing? Thanks. The other thing to remember is that the vinyl that we're looking at using has the ability to be cleaned without having to be replaced completely. And I think your comment about graffiti is absolutely valid, because it's the reality of how things are. Even with artwork that is considered to be beautiful, it can get it end up getting tagged or graffitied. So I think it's a great conversation to have, and I think this process that we're using with the high-grade vinyl will be easier to clean without destroying the art underneath it than it would be if it was a painted mural on the sound wall itself. I'm not an expert in this field, but that's what I've been told through my conversations with Caltrans.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Do we have any public comment? At least on the Zoom or original?
We have none here.
Okay. We will now close public comment, and I'll bring it back to my colleagues for discussion and or Councilmember Montes.
Thank you for the comments. And that's something that I think we can, you know, the graffiti is something that maybe we can increase the penalties or something to catch people. We can have a chief out there just kind of getting volunteers. No, but I think that, again, good point. But I think that shouldn't stop us from trying to do stuff. Because people are going to do those things, but we should try to continue to beautify for the benefit of the community. My preference, one of the things you're asking us tonight is to select one of them, right? So my preference, I love the water tower, would be option 2. Yeah, I actually want to express my liking of option 2. I think it's very neutral, but at the same time it expresses they're very inviting, welcoming, and provides good. It's a very vibrant way of looking at it there. So I do agree that option 2 is good.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yeah, I like option 1. That way they come. Option 1.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I think that one thing to think about is that people that see this art are not going to have more than 3 to 5 seconds to look at it.
That's correct.
So, you know, just with some of these pieces are like very detailed, something that you would probably stand in front of and have to look at. And For me, option one has a lot of great representation of what Madera really is. And I'm wondering if we have to stick to all of the pieces that are in option one, or if we can also, we have to take it like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just because in option two, there's, landscape, that would be good if it replaced the more detailed piece in option one.
So that was my question too, since I would like to replace some in one of the options with another one, another option. And I don't see why we would not be able to do that.
My concern, Mr. Mayor, respectfully, is that we could be spending from now until later this year to get it all squared away. These are the ones that the Arts Committee decided that were the best for the project moving forward. And I think they chose them for a particular reason, that they all kind of tied in together, and to start moving things around, I think is, I think it should take an awfully long time to kind of settle on where they would end up being.
I really, and I beg to disagree. I think that we can come up as a council with the vision for the wall that would reflect our visions. And it would not take, I don't believe it would take more than another meeting at the most, because you're saying that we would have to go back to the Arts Council.
Not necessarily. I mean, I feel like we selected the Arts Committee to make these decisions from an artistic perspective, and these are the ones that they felt were the best representations for the project. So, going back to 3, and then number 2, and then number 1.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to express my opinion, because I just want to make sure that we don't leave here without being able to express our opinion. I agree with Councilmember Mejia that there's some pieces in here that are highly visual, they're very to identify. The San Joaquin River, the vegetation that is indigenous to us, the water tower, but that would mean moving that around. So I believe that the San Joaquin River is highly representative of our community, as are the farm workers. But in order for us to be able to take them into consideration, we would have to move pieces around. And so I would like to see us have option. Option 2 is okay, but I really like the visual of the width of the canal and the river, and then the farm workers and the water tower, and then vegetation. So I know I'm not making this easy on you, but that would be my opinion. I'm not sure who was next. Councilwoman Evan?
Yes.
Oh, Councilwoman.
So this was a lot when we had to sit in the judge.
Yes, it was.
I just look at if there was any kind of way that we could take from possibly, and I because I sat there and I went through, and you and I, and it was a lot. There's a lot. But if we could possibly shift some from one and place it with those in option 2, and just kind of discount it and maybe make a conglomerate of the option 2 to put together with some from 1, if that's possible. That would probably work for us.
So what I hear council saying is maybe do an option 4 with the combination of what the pieces are being requested.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I like the water tower. Just go back. Okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Were you done, Council?
No, I'm fine. Yeah,
okay. Either Mayor Patel or Councilmember Rodriguez, who's next?
I just like to express that I think all the options, but I do think that when we delegate something to a committee, it's because we entrust that they're going to find the artist, or at least look at it through a lens different than mine, right? I'm not an artist, so I can only tell you that, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, we're not going to see those in great detail. But what captivates the eye is you're going to use roadside. You're only doing it for a split second. And it's one of the images that they'll capture when they look at Madera. And I think Madera is welcome to everyone. So I think a neutral would certainly play out a very attractive and appealing image of Madera. You know, we talked about, you know, wanting to bring in different diversity, right? So I think a neutral certainly does that. So I'm really against trying to change things, because you give authority to beautification, you give authority to these committees. We have to entrust that they're looking at the best interest of our community. And I don't feel like I have to be the one that has to have that eye, because I'm not an artist. That's not my job. My job is to delegate, and hopefully if you guys come up with the idea and you were able to bring this and put the work together, then I think it's important to at least respect the artist. This is what Madera wishes, right? I mean, we gave them an opportunity to do that. So those are my comments. I think, again, I think all options are great. I think option one definitely portrays our community. Option two, like I said, it's just a little more neutral. And option three is just, you know, I like the aerial stuff, but I like other things that captivate everybody. I think the option two pictures are very attractive. Again, I'm not an artist, but I think you guys went through quite a work to try to get these options in order for a certain reason. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem here.
I feel really strongly about option two. I think that's the only thing that I would replace is I really like number 4 and option 1, and I think that option 2 is reflective of everything pretty much in Madera County, but putting that specific art would be symbolic of the backbone of Madera County's economy, agriculture, and every kind of element that you see that there. So that's the only change that I would make. Otherwise, I feel really that option 2 really captures a lot of Madera County.
Councilwoman Gallegos.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. I would like to agree with my colleague, Councilman Rodriguez, that we do delegate. There was a lot of time that was given and volunteered, not just through council, through other agencies like Madera Unified and another professor that gave their time to go through this. And I know it's not easy. I am an artist. I teach art to 756 kids every week. I see a lot of artwork that goes through my classroom, a lot of talented artists that I see here today. And I know we have some of our own opinions on what should be put on the wall and what should be moved, but the options were given, and that's why you select an ad hoc to come back. And so that we do have the final say in the final decision as council, but we did send our colleagues to go and advocate for us. And if there was issues then that should have been expressed on our behalf at the time that you had all the committees present. So looking at option 1, 2, and 3, if I had to choose one, I think we should be choosing one so that we can move this project forward and get it rolling. It would be option 1, because I think there's aspects of every panel that represents our city. And I think if everybody looks at each panel, they'll see something that they really like that is still an option in 2 and 3. That I feel option 1 represents all the options together. That's all I have to. Thank you. I think we prioritize volunteers.
So there are 5 panels in each, correct?
Yes, five sets of 4.
Right. 5 sets of 4 panels.
Right. If we're looking at option 1 right now, the one that's listed as number 2, there's 2 on the side and then 2 more that butt up against it. They're not all.
There's
Yeah.
there's five panels in each option, right? There's five panels.
Yeah, oh, yes, there is. Excuse me. Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna try something, and if it doesn't fly, then we'll vote it down. Because I don't see any more hands raised. So I'd like to make a motion that under option 1, we take panel number 1 and panel number 4. Under option 2, we take number 4 and 5. And under option 3, panel number 2. So I'd like to get that. Is that enough panels? That would be enough.
That would, yeah.
Correct? Now, I'd like to make that motion. And if there's a second, we'll vote on it. And if it fails, then we'll come back and we'll address another. So is there a section?
Can we review those real quick?
Sure. Under option number 1?
Yeah.
Panel number 1.
Okay.
Under that same option, panel number 4.
Right.
The farm workers. Under option number 2, panel number 4, the water tower. And 5, 4 and 5, because they're large visual, but these are large visual. And then on option number 3, that would be the San Joaquin River on the number 2 there. You want to show us what we're talking about?
Sure. So option 4 that we're talking about is taking panel 1, this one right here from Daniel Van Gerven, and panel 4 from Andrea Torres. The 1, this one. And then from option 2, it's panel 4.
So we're choosing 2 that have a water tower?
Well, it was kind of hard to see. Which is the first water tower? Oh, this one. Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, we'll keep that one for sure. And then what was that?
So again, from option 2 would be panel 4, the water tower, and panel 5.
No, we'll strike number 4 from option 2 and just keep the original farm worker water tower.
So because there's already a water tower.
Yeah, but we don't want to duplicate.
So we would need one more panel because you took one out.
Okay, did we have the B on there?
We have the B under option 2. And then the 4th panel would be from option 3.
Would be yes, November.
We already have one of Daniel's in panel 1 that we're choosing. This is the reason that we chose these options, because we thought we split them up in the proper way.
Patience, brother. Patience. Then okay. So I think the vegetation under if you go back down to 3, the vegetation on this number 5.
Number 5 from option 3.
Yeah. That way we won't duplicate the.
So that would still leave us at needing one more panel for, is it? I have panel 1 and 4.
4 and 5.
1 and 4.
4 and 5.
And 5 only.
And then an option 3. So.
So 5 on option 2. And then on option 3, it was 2 and 5.
Yes, so 2 and 5. We didn't get a second. I'll make a motion to do option 1. I'll make a motion. You can motion. You didn't get a second, so I'll second that one. He seconded that motion. Have a little bit of second option 1, or
I'm going to second. Apologize. You made a motion on your provision 1. The absence of a second, he didn't make a motion to option 1. And if you're going to make a motion to option 1, I would amend to the second that we replace. I don't really want to replace anything, but it seems like there's not support. So in order to, in respect to the artist, I think I'm going to go with the second on option. I'll second option 1.
has a little bit of a water tower moving these around. It's kind of hard for people to keep track of. You want 2 from this, then 1. So I think that was the original purpose of having these options for us.
That's true.
Option 1 does cover what a lot of people were asking for. It looks like everybody on that, or not everybody, but the water tower most. So I think for that reason, yeah, first and a second. There's a motion by Councilmember Montes, second by Councilmember Rodriguez to choose option 1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes.
Option 1.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your patience. We'll now move on to item E, administrative reports. Item E1 is an informational report on USGA site visit to Madera Municipal Golf Course. Joseph, you have this one?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an informational report for the USGA site visit to Madera Golf Course. If you recall, on June 21st of this year, the council approved the 9th Amendment to the Madera Municipal Golf Course Operation and Management Lease Agreement with the SGM. There was a provision in the original document that required an audit be conducted by the United States Golf Association, USGA. That report had never happened before, and so we did some digging, and we found that out. And luckily, actually, we course corrected, and we did have USGA come out and do the first site audit at the Madera Municipal Golf Course on July 21st of this year. And the audit findings were generally favorable, which was somewhat surprising considering the course is over 30 years old. There were a few recommendations, and most of them are listed here, but the major ones were the upgrade to the irrigation system, to increase the weed control. On the putting greens, there was a recommendation to increase sand dilution and decrease the surface patch. There's a recommendation, which we knew previously was for bunker renovation. And then there was a recommendation to upgrade the grass to hybrid Bermuda grass. We will discuss this at our first advisory committee meeting, which will be held on or before August 21st. Where at the next council meeting, we will be presenting the proposed members for that committee. This report was for the funding for these improvement projects will be generated by revenues that were outlined within the Amendment 9 that we presented at the previous council meeting. This report was for information purposes only. I just want to bring everybody up to speed of where we're at. We are actually moving forward, so we're directionally correct, and thank you very much.
Still would like to ask if there are any public comment, if there's anyone that from the public that wishes to address any golfers in that. Any written or Zoom comments or anything?
We have not here.
Thank you very much. Is there any colleagues like closing public comment? There's any public comment at all? Seeing none, thank you very much for that information report. Oh, Mr. Rodriguez, did you have something?
Yes. So,
the one golfer now.
Joseph, now there is going to be a meeting. Have you identified all members of that?
We've got 4. We got a line of sight on the other 3. We're going through that process now. So we'll have to get those 3 and then settle on a date for the meet. I mean, a perfect time that's everybody. So we'll probably send out a doodle poll when we have all 7 members lined up.
I just want to make a comment. I know that this was part of the original agreement that the USDA would come out and give us a survey more or less of what do we need to bring this course back to par. A lot of it concentrated basically on what they feel is providing improvements to the course itself, bunkers, irrigation, and all that, aeration, nitrogen, and all these other weed control. But that in itself is going to be a huge cost. You can't forget that there's other improvements such as the actual the clubhouse, for example, the pavement and all that. So I guess when we get into this advisory committee, we can kind of gauge as to where we want to make these improvements, right? I know that the course itself requires the irrigation priority. That's what it stated there. But more importantly, there's other deteriorating things going on within the clubhouse and or the restaurant. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll have to prioritize that as a committee. Some of the things that I've already had some discussions with SGM about is just some TLC. I mean, we need some paint. Sure. And there's some simple things we could take care of. There's some low-hanging fruit, but as a committee, we'll discuss, prioritizing how we want to move forward.
Yeah, and I just wanted to know that this is a neutral party coming in, looking at the course conditions and giving us the recommendation, which I appreciate because I think all those things need to take place. I just think we need to make sure we have a budget to be able to do them and how to go about that. But I'm sure we'll do that once we get to
it. That's the plan.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Thank you. We will now move on to item F, council member reports, announcements, and future agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for the mayor and the council members to make brief reports on boards, committees, and other public agencies and at public events, to request updates, to initiate future agenda items, and to take action on matters initiated under this section of the agenda. Under this section, the council may take action only on items specifically agendized and which meet for the requirements for action. Councilmember Baines.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to just say the parks are sitting down at the park right now. Park is down. Park and we're laughing. It's like I've gotten a lot of comments from community about a lot of the programs that are going on, and they're so ecstatic. Movies in the park. Thank you very much for doing that. Thanks, staff, for being out there late at night with those mosquitoes. And I've gotten a lot of calls, and Parks and Joe have handled, and Public Works, the river. We're cleaning it out. We now cleared where we can go straight through underneath where the trails are at. So thank you for all that hard work. Just an FYI to everybody out there, school starts Monday, so drive slow. The kids will be back in session, and I know you got to get to work, just get up a few minutes earlier so you get some time in between the time you need to get from there to there. That's all there. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Garcia. I did want to add maybe a future agenda item in regards to the trails that go through the river at this time, to see an update as far as where we're at with the condition of those trails. I know that we've done a pretty good job of cleaning the river, but the trails along those also up to par. I know that's another thing that we have in Joseph list, but as Diego said, we can get out of the parking. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. If my colleagues would agree to that, just to see kind of where we're at, obviously after fire, to clean up, do we still have accessible trails where there's not a lot of potholes? I know that there was issues with Not sure if it was gophers or what have you, but that created some of the asphalt there to kind of sink in. And again, just the weeds that grew around that. So just wanted to see where we're at with that. Thank you.
Councilmember Montes.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for the report, especially the impact one. Really appreciate it. I'm not like this. But we did have our President Madera City Council had a press conference. I believe it was earlier this week, and we did get our numbers for the annual plan that count regarding homelessness, and the numbers went up a lot, and they didn't just go up in there; it went up pretty much every way. So that just shows us that we have a lot of work that we still need to do. The percentages were high there. I think they were a small community, but you know, I just want to relay to staff and everybody that we're still working on this. This is not something that's going to be solved overnight. And again, I mean, we didn't go up actual numbers like, but it just, you know, more community people really impacted. So just know that we're continuing to work on it, and it's not just another problem, it's a big problem, but that national problem. So, those are my comments.
Councilmember Ed.
Yes, also I would like to thank you all for the work that's been done on the river. I'm seeing less individuals come by, so thank you all for that, the cleanup. Also, in the morning, 7 o'clock, for anyone that's a senior citizen, 55 and older, at Town and Country Park, the food bank will be out doing the distribution again. And it's going to be $4 per person. So anyone 55 and older that would like to go out and have vegetables, they have a great selection of food that they give away. So like I said, it's only $4, but you have to be out there early. So some people get out about 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure that they're in line. So nice to see you guys out there. She have someone out there because sometimes senior citizens get right. That's just FYI right there. And also, it was quite nice today to go on the tour for the it's a Torana broadband reinvented, and so Anna was here today, and we were able to tour over by the sheriff's department, the tower that they have there, and it was really quite interesting to see where they don't have to go underground to be able to project the internet and the Wi-Fi, and it's going to be going from building to building, and they have this little iPad like this on the top of the building, and it's really quite small, but in order for it to project, it would have been something that would probably been even great for tonight when we were having the problem for all of the internet and everything. So that was really interesting. And also the senator was here, and she was gung ho on it. So some of the colleagues were there. I just want to say thank you to everyone. Please be safe going home tonight, and God bless each and every one of you. See you on next week. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you. Mayor Potem.
Thank you, Mayor. I was part of the ribbon cutting. I attended the ribbon cutting for the Madera County Justice Center. Congratulations once again to our DA, to the probation department, and everybody that's going to have a new dignified place where justice will be delivered. I was also able to attend the Crazy Deals grand opening, ribbon cutting ceremony, and the community was very excited to have a new store, a new option. And I would also like an update. I know you did mention some items today, but an update on the playground equipment and Millview Park. On the 1 year anniversary, be bringing it here. I'm asking for support on that. Thank you. And that's my report, Mayor.
Councilmember Villegas.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Garcia. Last Saturday we had the first back to school backpack giveaway, And this Saturday is another one over here in the courthouse by Yosemite, sponsored by Astoria. And Sunday is another one too in the park. So a lot of people away free backpack back to school for the children. So that's a very good thing that children can have a backpack. And I like the way I can see them very happy, you know, with a new backpack. So if anybody can be volunteers this Saturday and Sunday, so why don't everybody to be volunteers? And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, everyone stole my thunder. The only one that wasn't mentioned was the backpack event at the Pomona Ranch. The Madera Unified School District sponsored a backpack event for migrant children at Pomona Ranch, and they were very happy to receive that. All of the other things, yes, we've gone over. And it's always a pleasure to see Senator Caballero, because she's been such a blessing to our community here in Madera and Madera County, starting with her partnership with Assemblymember Bigelow for funds for our trunk line, and also helping us to try to get the hospital reopened. Her and Assemblywoman and Soya have been at the forefront advocating for us as our representatives, and really appreciated that they represent us in Sacramento. And so it would be really great if we could show our appreciation to them in some way, shape, or form soon. And also for Assemblywoman that's been on the Soya's event this coming Saturday. If you're a lover of paletas, ice cream, and tacos and backpacks, come on Saturday. It begins at 9 o'clock. A lot of us will be there. Some of our departments will be there also. And it should be a really good event. There's nothing like seeing the child receive a backpack full of supplies in the backpack to bring joy to their faces, and it warms your heart. And so all of these organizations, whether it's Ford, the Ford dealership here locally, or the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, which happened today also, it just warms your heart that people care about our community, and they show it by being front and center, helping our children. So thank you very much for that, and to all of those organizations and nonprofits involved. That concludes our meeting tonight. There is no item G closed session. We now call this meeting to adjournment. It is 8:44. Our next meeting dates are Wednesday, August 16th, and Wednesday, September the 6th. Thank you very much for being here. Have a safe trip back home, and good night.